Well, it's really exciting to be here because I've learned much more and I really would like to rewrite my talk, except I submitted my slides a week ago. But I think as I'm talking, you're going to get to see why this research reinforces the real importance of doing prevention as well as intervention. So, the work I'm going to talk about today was based in a longitudinal study that we started in order to understand processes by which children with a sexual abuse history were at risk for developing problems, as well as who is going to recover more. And at the time we started the work, we knew that, yeah, this history was a risk, but there are a lot of children who didn't develop problems, or they developed this problem, not that problem. We didn't really understand the pathways by which children develop problems. It wasn't really what was happening. We wanted to start to understand really what the abuse meant to the individual, what was it like for them, and how they were processing and making meaning out of the events. So basically, the idea was, well, is it what happened or how the person understands and tells a story about what happens that really is important for understanding how they're going to do over time and who's going to do better and who isn't going to do so well. Okay, so there wasn't much work on this, especially in youth, because the sample I'm going to talk to you about were adolescents. We started with when they were children. At any rate, we knew that this is a hard thing to make meaning about, these events, right? So we know that the abuse violates core assumptions about the self as being lovable, worthy, about others as providing safety and care, and so that would turn the child's world upside down. We also know from work with adults that, at least in one study, 50% of them reported that they still hadn't figured out what these experiences meant for who they were and their relationships with others. Okay, so we know that processing CSA can be really difficult. You have symptoms which get in the way of encoding the different memories, such as PTSD and dissociation. You have some really quite negative emotions, fear, sadness, shame, and anger, which could make it very difficult to approach the material and try and make sense out of it. We also know, and we've heard earlier, that parents are really an important part of helping children scaffold, and for prevention is also, as well as intervention, to understand negative events. And yet work shows that, well, first of all, there are no common scripts that parents have for how do we talk about the fact that you were sexually abused, and that parents often worry that if I discuss this with a child, it's going to make things worse. And we know from developmental literature that parents are really key to providing that scaffolding to be able to self-regulate and talk about memories and make sense out of them. And these stories are windows into what we call representations. And representations are really, they're your experiences, your thoughts, your emotions about what's happened to you in the past, and how you put those together to guide your behavior about how you'll be the next time you either interact with someone or you're in a certain situation. They tell us about strategies people use for regulating emotion and attention to memories, and also narratives, which is the best way of getting at representations. They also can tell us about material that are out of awareness. So I could ask an individual, okay, oh, can you check on a scale from 1 to 10 how much you think you figured out what the sexual abuse has meant to you? And they might check a 9. Oh, I figured it out. But then when I ask them to sit down with me and tell me what happened, what was this like for you? How did you feel? How did other people react? That's much more effortful. And there's material that's going to come up during that discussion that the person might not even realize, and which could be very valuable for helping develop interventions. So what are the different elements that we know were from past literature that are important for both healthy and unhealthy processing? One of them is the regulation of attention to memories, emotions, and reactions. And you can see I have this organized in terms of constructive, so everyone will know that's the That's the healthiest way of processing, and then there are two processing styles that are not particularly healthy. So the regulation of attention for the constructive processor is very balanced. They're willing to approach the material, but they can disengage with it. In contrast to that, the absorbed processor, they attend to the material, but they can't disengage, or they have a lot of difficulty disengaging. The avoidant processor has restricted attention. They don't want to really think about it, and so they really disengage from the material completely. Here's the shocker. We did not expect these findings. They were extremely distressing to us. So yes, we identified these kind of processing strategies in youth that we expected. Here's the distribution. Only 14% of our sample, 6 years after abuse discovery, showed us this constructive kind of processing. Now, if that isn't a huge call to prevention, I don't know what is.